So if you look at the outcomes of this report, Chair, for argument's sake, I want to take you, without going to the details of the report, I have explained in short that it is an evaluation by an external legal independent party who's got no interest whatsoever at the city. They then come up on page number 387, for argument's sake. On 387, they're providing us with findings on the administrative compliance stage. And they're saying, we've taken note of these bidders. We confirm that these bidders must be disqualified for these reasons. This is mirrored and checked against the BEC report. Checklist exercise is conducted. There's an agreement in terms of all bidders that are disqualified, or all bidders that move over to the second stage of the bid evaluation process. This is a confirmation now that is obtained by the probity report. I'm going to move on to 391 of the same report. 391, item 11.5. Probity report gives guidance that the following bidders complied with administrative compliance and were therefore evaluated to go through to the second stage. They list the bidders 2, 12, 15, 19, 21, 23, 26, right up until 54. They confirm that they have checked all of these issues. Administrative compliance is in place. They are validating that as the probity assurance team. They then move over to 392 and saying on 392, mandatory requirements stage 2. They take note that, for argument's sake, bidder number 12 is not compliant, meaning they did not attach public liability insurance review. They cannot move over to the second stage. Work of the BAC is to validate whether this has been catered according to the BAC, which indeed it was. The next stage, Chair, I want to take you through is on page 393. On 393, on 11.7, they provide a list of bidders who were compliant on stage 2 on the mandatory requirements, who are now eligible to go through to the next stage in terms of the supply chain management process. They give the list of these bidders from 2, 15, 21, 23, 26, 32, 35, 36, and 40. Then the last stage, they also conduct a site inspection on their own, Chair. On their own, they conduct a site inspection, they validate. I'm on page 394 now. On 394, the third stage of the probity report is to conduct site inspection and to validate. So if you look at this report on page 394, the proactive forensic assurance report, where independent individuals completely external from the city confirm that 2 bidders, 21 and 2, are not compliant at this stage. Remember, we had taken note on bidder number 2 that there was an issue, and BAC had referred this report back, and we required an addendum report to give us surety that this matter had indeed been completed. Nonetheless, we'll then proceed, Chairperson, to page number 395, where they give us further report that bidder number 2 and 21 are non-compliant at this stage. However, the following we are happy with. On page 395, on 11.11, they provide an outcome of evaluation that the following 7 bidders complied with stage 3 of site inspections and were evaluated to go through to the pricing stage. They provide these bids. They conclude that the findings cast doubt on the integrity of the tender process undertaken in the city. While they are significant enough to make the process irregular and expose the city to litigation, the BEC may still correct the identified defects before submitting this report to the BAC for final recommendation. This is then the process that is undertaken, a correction, a removal, and a confirmation to align to what the independent party have brought on board to us as a BEC stage. They then give their final recommendations. They certify the report true and correct, Chair. I was just giving an indication before I go to GM90 of the final probity report, what their role is, how they fit in at the city as well. Chairperson will now, with your...
Just before that, are all these steps done serially or sequentially?
After PAC is concluded, Chairperson. That's why
I mean all the probity steps.
Yes.
The several probity steps that you've been dealing with.
Yes.
Are they done serially?
Chairperson, they are done after PAC, no, after the work of the PEC, not while the PAC is doing administrative.
No, I'm within the probity, the
yes.
external entity. I'm talking about within the probity. Are the various steps that you've been dealing with done sequentially?
Yes, Chair.
There's this one. You knock off whoever needs to be knocked out. You move on to the next one. You knock off all the way, all of them sequentially.
Correct, Chair.
I would understand with just one example, for instance, when you have to go to the various sites.
Yes.
I would understand that that would have to be done separately.
Yes, Chair.
I'm not so sure that you have to do all the others, which may well be a desktop exercise. I'm not so sure that they need to be done sequentially.
Chairperson, there's only 7 bids. So that is done in a day.
Or
The
within
site
a
assessment could be done in a day.
Okay, all right. I'm asking because I seem to recall that there was testimony that said there are lots of delays as a result of the probity exercise, amongst others. I think there was such evidence.
You'll take note that this bid closed on the 2nd of October 2024, but the final award was, from a BAC perspective, was made on the 24th of September 2025. But in all due respect, Chair, these are necessary processes to curb irregularities until we finalize the digitalization of our SCM platform. We rather deal with delays of this nature. We rather encourage proper planning by departments, wherein we encourage that a tender process must be undertaken 12 months before the end of a new tender, until we are certain that the digital process is in place and we can with certainty deal with issues of illicit activities and corruption. So these delays, Chair, are necessary. Without this property report having been done, we would have appointed bidders who shouldn't have been there, Chair.
I'm by no means suggesting that you should not have it, not at all. I'm not suggesting that. Yeah.
Yes,
and of course, I think it was in the context of a different bid, not this one, if I'm not mistaken. But my point stands. I forget which. It was one of the very first witnesses from Tshwane who said that there are delays that result from the probity exercise. So that's why I'm engaging you on this.
True, Chair. But I still deem these delays as necessary to at least ensure that there are no irregularities and that the city is not subject to litigations from errors which could have been avoided. This was a necessary internal control mechanism to reduce irregular expenditure, one, and to curb illicit activities, Chair.
Thank you.
Mnisi, I think, Mr. Mnisi, the point that the other witness made was the result of this delay is that the previous tender or the award, which has already expired, then has to be extended. And if you are spending 800 million a year, people whose awards have expired, you're now appointing them on a month-to-month basis for a period of a year, and you're spending 800 million that you should not have spent on them. So you're not only influencing the new tender, you're also influencing the old one, because if those who were appointed under the old tender would not have qualified under the new one, the effect is that they get an extension of a year. So there are those issues.
Chairperson, precisely our concern. It's a potential expenditure of 800 million. And were we to proceed with an award without this necessary assurance exercise, would be doing injustice. You'll take note that on the instance that we are referring to, I think it's TMPD 2 on 2016, that process was deemed irregular, Chair. And had this exercise been brought on board, it could have been easily avoided at that time. So we're always encouraging all departments to ensure proper planning until a point in time where we are able to have the digital systems on board to curb this where there's certainty. At this point, Chair, this is such an essential exercise. The city was sitting with irregular expenditure almost with 18 billion rand. The situation I, as the chief financial officer, as well as the city manager, couldn't afford for this to continue. Hence, the resolution is you must ensure that bids are advertised at least 9 to 12 months before they end, because we need to ensure that the proactive forensic assurance exercise is undertaken. Once we are able to confirm that the digital system is on board and we're able to deal with petty, inconsistent, illicit activities, we'll then deem this as an additional exercise. At this point, it is a necessary exercise. If we were to spend 800 million on a new tender, we need to be certain that all processes have been followed to the T. From the extension, Chair, if you look at our extension notices, in some instances, it's on a month-to-month basis. It's not really a blanket approach of saying you will now automatically get the new 800 million as the old bidders. It's a month-to-month where we still give departments an opportunity to fast-track and finalize this process. Also, Chair, what I want to add is that mechanism of escalations of delays are there for departments to deal with. Departments, if there are delays, have the full authority to engage the Chief Audit Executive to put systems in place to fast-track matters of this nature. But the key exercise is that we need to deal with proper planning exercises, Chair. That's an issue that hasn't been there at the city at one point in time. And this is one mechanism that forces that through, and it's a double-edged sword in a positive way. One, we're able to plan accordingly. Two, we reduce irregular expenditure that is incurred by the city. But Chair, I think I will break down further within my statement on that particular tender and what actually transpired in each of the events where the extensions were considered by the BAC.
Mr. Minister, just to understand the sequence of the process. So the BC does its evaluation.
Yes.
And then they have a report. Is it at that point that probity is brought in?
Yes.
The probity authority is brought in at that point?
Yes.
Appointed by the city manager?
Yes. And the Chief Audit Executive.
And the chief?
Chief Audit Executive.
Okay. And then where does the probity report serve once it's done?
Once it's done, it's presented to the BEC. The findings
Yes.
are presented and deliberated at the BEC.
Okay.
They are given an opportunity to make the necessary corrections. Once consensus has been reached between probity team and the BEC, then it's served to the BAC for further consideration.
Okay. So where you've had to return as a BAC, you've had to return a report or a process to the BEC to address the probity concerns. What does it mean for the process that you've described? Does it mean the BEC did not address the concerns in the probity report, but simply submitted to the BAC, and you then said, but you haven't addressed this? I'm trying to understand the process as you explain it. This is how it's supposed to happen, and what in fact would have happened in the situation that you explained to us, that you've had to turn it back.
Indeed, Chair, you are spot on. That's exactly what it means. It means BAC is identifying a notable difference between the final probity report and the BEC report. In this case, it was as a result of bid number 2 from Civil Security Services, where that bid, from a probity perspective, said, nope, the irregularities here, you shouldn't award this. BAC says, no, we have had our interaction with the probity team. We have cleared this. But at BAC, they're not providing us with conclusive evidence that has been dealt with accordingly. At BAC, we are sitting in front of us with the BEC report and the probity report. The probity report still indicates deficiencies within bid number 2. Hence, we refer that back for there to either be an official confirmation in the form of an addendum or a confirmation report from probity that indeed we had a discussion with BEC. We are now convinced that bidder number 2, Vamsira Security Services, for an example, is now compliant and should be awarded. They could have came back, Chair, and said, no, this bidder should not have been awarded. We maintain our stance that we did not confirm 1, 2, and 3 issues, which means the BEC must ensure correction. Probity report, as part of our internal controls, is authoritative in nature. Unless you've got substantive reasons to differ with that, then we'll allow that. Otherwise, Chair, a third-party confirmation is superior from all quarters of the accounting fraternity. The Auditor General relies on a third-party confirmation. This is a third-party confirmation that I would rather place my reliance on than an internal report as well.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get right in my head is where probity, the probity authority has said, this bidder should not have been recommended because they did not submit 3 years audited financials. And then that's 1. 2, this bidder should not have been should not have been recommended because they do not have a 5-ton truck. Those 2 fact-based statements. When it goes back, when that report goes to the BEC, when you say as BAC, let this go back to the BEC to consider what in fact is the BEC to do with it? Do they approach the bidder and say, give us 3 years audited financial statements? Do you now have a 5-ton truck? And then come back to you and say, oh, now they are compliant. Or how exactly is the BC to fix those two issues
Yes.
that are specifically flagged by property?